welcome to the studio. I wanted to try out something new and give insight on the artwork that I'm drawing. So, what I'm working on right now is a side project that I've started. I'm doing my own main 6 Demise portraits as a collection, and I wanted to discuss my process for each one. If you like this kind of content, please like, comment, and subscribe, and click the notification bell to be notified when I upload more content like this. So, the piece that I'm currently working on is called Wrong Spell, featuring the main character of My Little Pony Friendship is Magic, Twilight Sparkle. It's called this because she's obviously made a mistake with her spellcasting, with a necromancy book. The inspiration for this piece is kind of messy, so I had no idea what I wanted to do with Twilight at first, because possession is just so common in this part of the fandom, at least amongst those who make this sort of, gore collection. So because I didn't have any real inspiration in the beginning for this piece, I chatted up one of my good friends and asked him what he thought would be a good idea for an accidental end for Twilight here. And he suggested zombification, which immediately made me think of necromancy. And I thought, yep, that sounds perfect. It matches Twilight's ambition, if you will, for magical knowledge. I don't think she would be opposed to having such a book, but clearly using it is dangerous, and she overlooked the danger in this piece. So the overall composition of this piece in terms of the lighting and shading, I also had no idea what I wanted to do with. I didn't draw any windows into the main frame of the piece, and I know that light can be coming from a window off screen, but I wanted the light source to be way more concentrated to the center focal point of the piece. So as I'm working on it, doing the line art and such, I'm trying to think about what kind of light source I want to use, which is odd because I usually do have a vague idea of what I want to do before I even start the piece so that it flows as one continuous project. But this time I really had to fiddle around with ideas in my head as I was working on it. That's why you see me fiddling with a candlestick for a little bit after I've blocked in all the colors. The reason I abandoned the candlestick idea is because Twilight's horn is broken, and she can't be floating the candlestick up near her face if she can't use her magic. It just took me a second to realize that I had even drawn her horn like that to begin with. So I eventually just abandoned the candle idea altogether and decide to make the book itself that she's reading the source of the light as a little glow effect. Having the only light source in the room for this kind of piece really allows for a lot of dark and intense shadow, which is something that I really like for my gore pieces, because it kind of forces the audience to have to really look at the image for a decent amount of time to actually see all of the horrific details that are hidden in shadow. Though, of course, bright or even intense lights for gore and horror illustrations can be just as good and just as effective at creating a decent horror atmosphere as lower light does. So naturally, because I chose a glowing light source, I have to keep in mind the fact that it being a glow means that it can be bright right at the light source, but then once it leaves the light source, it gets dimmer and dimmer, and there's only so much light that's emitted from something that is glowing. Usually, that is how the term or the word glow is used. Candlelight itself is an example of glowing light, which is one of the reasons why I was trying to draw a candle in the first place. And I do want to point out that the eyeball is way too small for a good majority of the piece while I'm working on it. And I don't notice that it's too small until I'm nearly done, which thankfully I was able to correct before it was too late to really do anything about it. So most of my gore pieces don't really have an actual story attached to them. I usually just come up with a basic concept or general theme for them, and then I make up that scene. They're usually just isolated and don't have any actual weight. If people want to come up with their own stories about them, I encourage that and think that that's really cool. But as far as my own interpretation goes, most of my pieces are there just to be horrific. They don't have any sort of backstory most of the time. With this collection, however, each one does have its own little, short quip of what you could call a story attached to it. And with this one in particular, it's, as I had mentioned before, Twilight was too ambitious with a necromancy book and cast an incorrect spell, a spell that she didn't initially want to cast. And the ramifications, clearly, are zombification, or, making one undead. The overall theme I'm going for this collection is, I used to say accidental amongst some of my friends that I was discussing this with, and now I'm realizing that a better way to frame it so that each piece fits would be preventable instead. So each one of these Demise portraits displays something, a form of end that is very much preventable. I will go more into depth as to why I chose that particular word over accidental when I get to Fluttershy's piece, but I would rather save it for that, because it's the only one that really stands out. Yeah, I have to say, shading eyes is probably one of my favorite things to do. It's just so satisfying to make them look shiny and glossy. My favorite thing about this piece is probably the sickly green lighting that I used coming off of the book. I think it just adds a whole other level of creepy atmosphere to the entire piece, and it really settles in the overall gross nature of what it means to be undead. I was originally going to type out some sort of script, even a meme of some kind, as an Easter egg to put in there, but I realized that it would not only be tedious to do that, but it would be so tiny that it would probably be illegible anyway. So there wasn't really a point to hiding an Easter egg like that. So yeah, admittedly, that's about all I have to say for this piece. It's not the most thought-provoking of the series, I'd argue. It's pretty self-explanatory. It's not to say I don't like it. I do honestly really like the way this one came out in the end. Kind of funny how big their eyes really have to be to fit in those sockets, and even then I might have still made it a little too small. But that was Thunder. I have two female cats. One is named Thunder, one is named Rain. They're litter mates, and yeah, sometimes they will show up on my recordings. So that's all I've got for this video. Everybody says it, but it seems to genuinely help, so if you liked this content, please like, comment, and subscribe. Please click the notification bell to be notified when I make more content like this, and please share it around with as many people as you can that you think would enjoy this kind of content. And I will see you in the next one.